All right, welcome to this lesson on ordering rational numbers. So just as a quick review, remember that we are now going to be bringing in negative rational numbers. You can, in fact, have negatives. Keep in mind that you can see them three different ways. So I can have it as negative 1 over 3, like the negative out front there. I can have the negative with my numerator, or I can have my negative with the denominator. Those all mean the same thing. If you enter them into your calculator, you're going to get negative 0.3 repeating in all of those cases. It doesn't matter where the negative sign is. Normally, I usually keep my negative sign with the numerator. I prefer this one right here. You'll often see this one as well. You don't see this one very often, but it is actually the same thing. So if we want to place the numbers in order from smallest to largest, we need them all to look the same. So we need either all fractions or all decimals. So you can work in whichever you prefer. If you like fractions, you can make them into fractions. Or if you like decimals, you can make them into decimals. I feel like it's less work to turn fractions into decimals. So the only one that's not is this guy right here. So if I change him into a decimal and I say negative 6 over 5, I end up getting negative 1.2. Okay, so now the smallest number is the one that is furthest to the left on the number line, right? So that would be my kind of largest negative number. So my smallest number is going to be negative 1.25. After that, so that one's done. I like to cross them off when I'm done so I know. I'm going to have this negative 1.2 because those are my two negative numbers. Make sure you put it as it was originally stated. So I'm going to write negative 6 over 5. So that one's done. Now I'm moving into the positives. The first thing that I would come to, so these two are very close to one another, but 1.6 is slightly less than 1.6 repeating, and then I would have 2. Okay, so you're just putting those in order. We can also put those onto a number line. Okay, so we're going to take a look at doing that now. So if I want to label those same numbers on a number line, sorry for making that tricky, we need to put on, first of all, the whole numbers that are in question. So my smallest number is negative 1.25, so I'm going to put negative 2 over here because that'll be small enough, and I want to go up to at least the number 2, right? Because that's my largest number. So I'm going to put, I guess, 0 in the middle, negative 1, and positive 1. Okay, again, I didn't actually get a ruler out and measure. If you want to, that's great, but as long as you're reasonable. And the other thing is, we're just going to kind of use our estimation skills, but what I do care about is that you have to be on the right side of 1/2. Okay, so if I'm going to put negative 1.25, so that's going this way from 0, and I'm past negative 1 and a little bit more. Negative 1.5 would be here, so 1.25 is going to hit before that's 1.25. So you need to put that is going to be somewhere over here. You need to make sure that you are on the right side of 1/2. Okay, so this is going to be negative 1.25. We'll label those guys. And then I had negative 1.2. Okay, so that's going to come pretty close right next to it. That one is negative 6 over 5. Then I go all the way to 1.6. So you notice I've got these two guys coming right close to each other. So 1.6 is on the other side of 0.5. So if I imagine that 0.5 was, say, about right there, I'm going to have 1.6 coming next to that. So that's 1.6 there. And I'm going to have 1.6 repeating coming kind of right next to that. So 1.6 repeating. And then my last one to put on is 2. Okay, so the way I usually do these is I label my numbers for my number line, my whole numbers down below, and then I label the ones I'm asked to place on the number line above. Okay, so make sure you label them as they are given. Let's try one more. So we're going to label these guys. So I've got 3.8, 3/8, negative 1.5, 5/3, negative 2.3, and 3/2. So what we need to do first is convert these guys into decimals that are not into decimals. So this guy is 0.375. 5/3 is 1.6 repeating, and negative 3/2 is negative 1.5. Okay, so my smallest number is my smallest number is negative 1.5, actually, or 2.3, sorry, so I'm going to go from negative 3. Then I've got 3.8, so I'm going to have to go up to like 4, right? So I'm going to just count myself up here, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can barely fit that on there. Okay, so I'm going to label them. You can put them in any order. 3.8 is positive 3.8, so that is, again, we imagine where 3.5 is, and we need to go to the right of that. So 3.8 is going to be somewhere about there. And then I've got 3/8, which is 0.375. Okay, so that is smaller than 1/2. So 1/2 would be in the middle. 0.375 or 3/8 is going to go there. -1.5. Okay, so now I'm into the negatives between -1 and -2, and we're going to be right at that halfway point. So -1.5 is going to go there. -1.5. Notice that that is also -3/2. I'm not sure why I gave you two the same, but that's okay. And then I'm going to put 5/3 on. That's 1.6. So I've got to go between 1 and 2 and slightly past the half there. So we'll put her about right there. So 5/3 goes there. And then -2.3. So it's going to be just before 2.5. Okay, so those are those numbers placed on the number line. Now, I can kind of have you place numbers. I can also have you read numbers, and we've looked at this before. So for these decimals, we're just going to estimate. What do we think these values are? So A, we're going to do them as decimals to the nearest tenth. That means one spot after the decimal. So here would be like 1.5, so it's a little bit further. So maybe it's 1.7, 1.6, 1.8, as long as you're kind of close there. B looks like it's almost halfway in between, so how about we say 0.5 for that guy? And C is just past the 2, so let's say 2.1 or 2.2, okay? As long as you are reasonable, we know that it's less than 2.5 and pretty close to 2, you'll be fine there. Now when you're reading fractions, what you have to do is figure out kind of what each, I usually say go to between 0 and 1, pretend it's a chocolate bar, right? And it's split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chunks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means that each tick mark being red on this graph is 1/5 because I split between 0 and 1 into 5 pieces. So if you wanted to label more, you could. So this would be 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5, 6/5, 7/5, or you could be using improper here. You might say this is 1 2/5, right? And so on and so on. So what is the value for B? Well, B is at 4/5. What is the value for C? Well, it's either 7/5, or you might go it's past the 1 by 2/5, so it's 1 2/5. Over here, what's A? Well, it's in between 0 and 1. It's -1, -2, -3/5. Okay, so that is the reading on the number lines. So you can go ahead and work through the practice questions. There's quite a lot of them. When you're done, make sure you check it in the binder, and then you're going to do a mastery check on this.